All right, we're live with Scott Alan Turner. Thanks so much for checking out our Facebook Live. Thanks so much for being here with us, Scott.
Thanks, Drew. Glad to be here.
Scott is our financial rock star, and he's doing all kinds of great things. He's coming on exploring mind and body, nationally syndicated across Canada, and has a podcast in the U.S. as well. Scott, why do you call yourself a financial rock star?
Two reasons. I started out as a money moron when I was early on, got a financial education. So I've got the financial background from there. And also I play in a band. So I'm somewhat of it, not a rock star. I don't tour or anything, but I do play rock and roll music.
And so why do you call yourself a money moron?
Oh, when I got out of college, like a lot of people, I didn't have the financial education that they would hopefully teach you in school, but they don't. Got into some credit card debt, bought too much car, had some student loans. So I was your typical postgraduate broke person, living paycheck to paycheck and not knowing a lot about money, interest rates, how to buy a car the right way, how to manage your money, save, budgeting, invest, all those things. So pretty much any money mistake that you could possibly make, I've made most of them. And from there, went through that for several years, several iterations of being broke. And then finally had my financial awakening in my mid-20s, started getting educated, reading books, listening to radio programs, and really diving in and making a 180 in my life to get to where I am today, financially independent, working because I want to, not because I have to, and living the financial rock star lifestyle.
So when you say credit card debt, I think that's a big issue in this world. Like we have so many people have issues around credit card debt. What are some things or some tips that you work with your clients to help them get out of credit card debt?
The first one is not being the ostrich. So taking your head out of the sand, not ignoring the problem, looking at the credit card statement that you get each month, figuring out where your money is going, and not hiding from it, really. Just recognizing, all right, we've got some bills over here that we're paying. Maybe we've gotten into that because we weren't aware of what we're spending money on. Maybe there was some medical issues. Some people have legitimate reasons why they've gone into debt that are out of control beyond their what they can handle. And from there, it's where are we spending money? Where am I using too much that maybe I could trim back on things that are less important to me? For example, I don't spend a whole lot of money on clothes myself. Somebody else may like to do that, but until you recognize here's where my money is going, you have no awareness of where the changes that you can make in your own life in order to correct that situation.
All right, so clothes is a big one. What else are people spending money on that they may not need, or maybe they could watch a bit closer to?
Sure. The big one in my life, which has made a huge difference, is transportation, which is a little bit different if you're living in a city. But if you have an automobile, the average down here in the United States, average cars are selling for $30,000 and people are financing $29,000. 99% of cars are financed to almost the maximum value that people are paying. And as soon as you drive off the lot, they're worth $4,000 to $5,000 less. So if you just scaled back and bought a car that's a little cheaper, or maybe not financed as much, financed it for a lower amount of time, 36 months compared to 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you'll save a ton of money on interest, car payments. You get the car paid off sooner. And as soon as you don't have a car payment, you can start accumulating wealth really, really quickly.
All right. So why do you think so many people go, what are they doing? Buying new?
Oh, yeah. It's a rite of passage. I did the same thing. Get out of college. All right. I got my first job. Yay. And then you work a little while. For me, it was about 9 months. It's like, all right, I've put in my 4 years at school. I've arrived. I've got a job. I'm going to head to the car lot and buy something brand new because I deserve it. I've worked hard for this. And a lot of people go down that path, and then they get through the first new vehicle. They drive it for a couple, 3 years, and they get the next new vehicle, drive it for a couple, 3 years. And that cycle continues for decades. Whereas if you just bought a car and drove it for 10 years till the wheels fall off, like to say, you'd accumulate tens of thousands of dollars.
And all right, so so people are going to buy brand new cars? Is that what it is?
A lot of people go down that road. If you bought something that was first just addressing what are my vehicle needs, what do I need to get around, depending on your job situation, how far you are from work, whether you're like a salesperson driving around from office to office, maybe you need something that's going to be more reliable, get better mileage. Or if you're a general contractor, maybe you need a truck. Figuring out what your needs are, your lifestyle, family situation, all that stuff, and then figure out what your wants are and try to come up with some type of compromise where you're not going for the absolute best that someone might get who's been working for 10 or 20 years and could afford that vehicle. Scale it back a little bit, get something used. My first vehicle was a brand new Jeep. Then I got a brand new sports car. I was in a bad situation in my life, coupled with a mortgage on top of that. First thing I did, went out and sold the sports car, and that allowed me to buy this really used, cheap truck for cash. And that was the beginning of accumulating a lot of money because I didn't have a car payment anymore at that point.
So you're able to save all that money that you're spending on car payments.
Yeah, when you start factoring in the insurance, the depreciation, all this stuff, a lot of people say, I don't have any money to save. I don't make enough. And what I like to say is, for my own situation, the first two cars I bought, when I factor in depreciation, insurance, car payments, all that stuff, it came out to about $30,000 over a few years of time. If I had not bought those cars, taken that $30,000, invested it, at age 65, I have over $1 million in my retirement. So when people say, I don't have enough savings, usually there's $1 million sitting in your driveway.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy when you think about it like that. But I don't think we don't think about it like that. We just think about we should have a new car. I got a new job, and that's the way society works. Like I want to get into houses in a second here because I want to hear your perspective. Just for our viewers that are coming in and out, we're Facebook Live. I just wanted to let you know that we're interviewing Scott Alan Turner. He is coming on Exploring Mind and Body for nationally syndicated across Canada. We're on Radio Laurier. That's going up Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, CKLU 96.7. That's coming up today, actually tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and then CFRC 101.9, 7:30 Eastern today as well. And then I'll get into, we got a couple more coming up this weekend that we're going to release our interview here, Scott. Tell me about, and then if you guys are on here live, if you have any questions for Scott, go ahead and ask or type them in the comments and we'll answer for you. Scott, tell me about housing. It seems like this is a bit of a controversial subject. A lot of people say renting is like throwing your money away. And then there's the other aspect of as soon as you have enough money for a down payment, you're struggling to pay the mortgage each month. What's your perspective here?
Yeah, it's pretty challenging because people they want to get into a house that they see their parents in. And their parents have been working for 10 or 20 years, so they want to be mom and dad at age 25. And I did the exact same thing. I bought as much house as my boss told me I should. When I found out, hey, I can afford a house because my coworker is buying a house. I can get one too. We're at the same salary level. Buy as much house as the bank will let you. I don't quite that much. And we go down that road where we throw everything towards the down payment, or maybe even more than that. Maybe we borrow a little excess. And then we're struggling to make mortgage payments each month because we've oversubscribed ourselves. The best way to fix that or address it is figuring out here's what I'm spending per month. Here's what I've got available based on what my rent situation is, how much what am I comfortable paying towards the mortgage. Live in that house 5 to 7 years. And then we upgrade at that point.
So doing the best you can with a mortgage and a down payment is what you recommend, even if you don't have those funds, is what you recommend instead of buying a big house, living above your means, maybe falling into debt. What's the word I'm looking for? Instead of looking for rental property, I suppose, or renting yourself.
Yeah, renting is not a terrible. If you're in a situation where you've got a lot of student loans, a lot of credit card debt, maybe a car loan, paying off those things on a mortgage, which is just going to stress and add to your sleepless nights, going through those, getting down the debt, being able to save down payment on a home. You want to get into a house that is going to sleep well at night. Sleep well at night. Swan song about Swan, SWA, sleep well at night. Which is a great feeling compared to struggling to pay the mortgage, being underwater, being stressed out, which overflows into your work life, your relationships, if you got kids. A lot of negative things that goes on when you start oversubscribing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point because I think that so many people are one or the other. Like, buy a house, renting's throwing your money away. But then you have people, if you look at New York City, for example, most people rent. Like, you're not going to buy an apartment there. So you have two different aspects. And to me, I don't know if one's better than the other. I suppose it depends where you live, but I just think that's a good point. Like, do what's best for you in your circumstance, instead of with that one belief of, I have to save all my money down payment for how many years you should not be able to afford or live comfortably paying that mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. Renting.
Renting is not a terrible thing. You rent a while, right? For 5 years before I
20%
20%
on the house, as I should have. 10% down payment.
10% down payment.
Because then I oversubscribed myself. And was back to living paycheck to paycheck. But if you're in high rent areas, you've got this excess debt to take care of. Renting is fine for a period of time. Real estate is a great investment. It's not the greatest investment for everybody, but it's a forced savings account, which is kind of a benefit to it. A lot of people don't have any savings. So if you've got a mortgage, you're putting equity into your home, you're saving every month, and that's a good thing. But as you said, if you're living in New York City, a high rent area, renting 5-10 years, it's not a bad way to go.
I like that. All right, those of our listeners that are tuning in and out, we're on Facebook Live here with Scott Alan Turner, financial rock star. Scott has written a book. He's got his own show. He's got his own radio show, podcast, and we're going to be streaming this across Canada on multiple stations. We've already listed the Thursday. We got Tuesday, Thursday station. We're going up on Monday as well. And then this weekend here locally, we're on 96.5 CKFM at 8 p.m. here in Olds. And then we're all the way across the country in New Brunswick, Sussex, 590 CJCW at 7:30 a.m. Scott, tell me about your book and your show, your radio show, and how people can get a hold of you or check out more what you do.
Sure, my website is ScottAlanTurner.com, ALAN, and my show is the Scott Alan Turner Show. I answer listener questions about personal finance, getting out of debt, saving, budgeting, getting started investing, starting small businesses. I got a pretty varied background in terms of personal finance. I take all my years of expertise and mistakes and help people not make the same mistakes that I made.
So tell me about your book here briefly. What did you write about?
Yeah, the book is called 99 Minute Millionaire. It's a bestseller over on Amazon. And if you go to ScottAlanTurner.com/explore, you can get the audio version of that book for free. It is a beginner investing book. It's why you should start investing, how to start investing, and in 99 minutes, on average, not knowing anything about investing or money or why to be an investor at the end of that book.
I know this is a difficult question for you. What's your best tip? If someone would say, give me one tip that you wrote about in your book about investing, what would you say?
Personal finance can be one simple statement. And it branches out from there. And it is spend less than you earn. Build mass quantities of wealth, no matter what your situation is.
That's pretty simple, isn't it? Just pay attention to what you're spending and don't spend more than you make.
It's simple, but it ain't easy.
Right. So many people don't do it. All right, Scott, thanks so much for joining us with this Facebook Live. We've done a handful now. This is going to be, I call these pre-interviews for Exploring Mind and Body. So you can check out the full show with Scott Alan Turner on exploringmindandbody.com if you miss it on air. But we're going live across Canada with nationally syndicated Exploring Mind and Body. So thank you so much, Scott, and all the best with your show, with your book, and everything else you're doing.
Thanks, Drew.